Scott's Geography Notebook. Do you want to try saying it?
Da, da, da.
Inside the Earth. What we want to look at as we're going through this is we're wanting to look at what's inside the Earth. Now, what we've known so far mainly has to do, or what we've learned in the past in your other classes, is the chemical characteristics that we have as we're going deeper down the Earth. So we'll review those, but what we really kind of care about is the physical nature of what's down deeper inside the Earth and what we're going to find there. This drawing should look familiar for many of you, and what this little drawing is going to be doing is it's going to be going through and showing us our different layers that we have. So what we want to do is divide this into two different parts. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the physical nature that we have. Of the chemical nature that we have. So over on this side, we're going to talk about the chemical side of things. And over on this side, we want to talk about our physical Earth. So when we're looking at our chemical Earth, what have we learned about our entire life? We've learned about the core. And then we know that it's really hot there. And almost just as hot, but not quite as hot, is going to be our mantle. The mantle, and then out on this very outside part where you and I walk around is going to be our crust. All right, now, they came up with these different categories based on the chemical composition of what is there. It's cool, but the physical composition is maybe going to be helping us out a little bit more. So the first thing that we need to do is take our core and actually divide it into two different parts. So I'm going to have my inner core and my outer core. One of those is going to be solid in nature, and one of them is going to be more liquid in nature. So our inner core and the outer core. The inner core is going to be a solid. This outer core is going to be liquid because it's so hot and so much pressure there. All right, now the mantle, sure, yeah, we're going to have our mantle just like we had over with our chemical. We haven't changed the name of that. Thank you very much. The mantle, and that's going to be mostly a solid surface until we start to see getting out here to the outer part of that mantle. You see, we have the crustal material, but there's kind of this shady area that we want to kind of talk about a little bit more, because what we're going to do is we're going to take that upper part of the mantle and the lower part of the crust, and we're going to divide it up a little bit more. So let's get all the way out to there. Good. Of course, none of this is really to scale. And so we have this outer part of, pencil's wearing down. The outer part of our mantle, or the upper mantle, and we have our crustal material out here. We're going to be looking at this kind of in two different ways. All right, so we have our mantle, which is going to be solid. And then floating around there, okay, we're going to be getting to this layer that's going to be kind of soft. It's kind of like plastic, and it's called the Asthenosphere. Okay, this asthenosphere is kind of, it's referred to kind of as a plastic type texture, not solid, not liquid, like plastic. Or a lot of times people will say it's like silly putty. Okay, and floating on that silly putty is a number of different crustal pieces. Now, these crustal pieces we refer to as the lithosphere. Okay. Now, it kind of gets all messy right in through here. The borderline between the crust and the mantle versus the borderline between the lithosphere and the asthenosphere. Obviously, we stand on the lithosphere, so it's going to be a solid. And that lithosphere is there. It's going to consist of two different types of plates. And the two different types of plates might sound familiar. Some of that is going to be oceanic plates. So oceanic plates floating around there. And the other type that might also sound familiar are going to be continental. So we have our oceanic and continental plates that make up the lithosphere, and that lithosphere is the solid material that's floating around on the asthenosphere. Right. This idea is kind of our basis for understanding our idea of plate tectonics. If we were to look at our asthenosphere, and we saw that as this plasticky type material, then floating on top of there are going to be our oceanic plates. And we're going to have other places where it's going to be continental plates. And they're both just kind of floating here on the asthenosphere. Now, a lot of our oceanic plates are going to be, they're thinner, they're a little bit more dense, so they squish down a little bit more. A lot of them are going to be covered in water. And as we look around the world at our different tectonic plates, those are going to be our oceanic and our continental plates that we see floating around. When we're trying to understand the physical features on the Earth and what's created those physical features, it's important that we understand these two different plate types and where that is going to be causing that movement there. So we have our chemical, the core, the mantle, and the crust, but when we're looking at our physical features, the inner core versus the outer core, this came into play way back when we were talking about the magnetosphere. But then we have our mantle, which is going to be solid, and then this layer, the asthenosphere and the lithosphere on the furthest part out.